But listening to you talk, you prompted a question in me. Where do you fall on the spectrum of designing a film for an audience, or do you think this is a cool idea and the right people are going to get it? Where are you going with that?
Oh man, inevitably, I think you have to consider both, right? So I'm not the root of, I think it's Rick Rubin who says it should only be about your personal love of a project. Forget the audience completely. Okay, that is definitely one philosophy. Then I think there's the Disney approach, which is like, we want as many people to love this as possible. You know what? Also valid. I think with me personally and how I approached Don't Bother the Neighbors and also Let's Leave the Planet as well, I wanted to make sure things like, for example, the sound was as good as I could possibly get it. I've been to many film festivals now and I've had a film just be a notch less because the sound wasn't there. You know what I mean? I can't think of any examples off the top of my head. I'm not here to call anyone out, but I'm just saying that if the sound is like just one notch down from just being this level that's just pleasing, if I'll call it that, the film just suffers a little bit. So inevitably, I did go in and meticulously look at levels, watch YouTube videos on proper way to mix sound, went back multiple passes for like mixing the levels of our background music and Don't Bother the Neighbors. Inevitably, I'm thinking about the audience at all times in that aspect. But as far as the story I wanted to tell, as far as does our tentacle look real? Like, does it look like Marvel movies? I said, no, I don't.
Spoiler, there's a tentacle.
There's a tentacle and Don't Bother the Neighbors. That is not why I would hope you enjoy our film. I hope that you think our actor did a great performance and our fight scene was awesome. I hope you loved our lighting. And now I'm talking about the audience again. I should say that I loved all of those things, like personally, like that is me put to screen without acting. You know what I mean? That's how my brain works. So in that part, in that way, that's where the insecurity came up when I'm like talking to Michael and Julia and I'm like, oh no, is this good? Because I love it. I don't know if anyone else will. So it is a balancing act between the two, between truly, I made this for myself, and I want this to play in a theater, and I don't want anyone to walk out because of sound or because of something more technical like that.
Yeah, some relatively minor but still important detail to the overall picture. And that is the biggest problem I've seen in both big budget movies and low budget movies, independent short films, whatever, is I can't understand what they're saying. And I have great hearing, but if your soundtrack is up here and your dialogue's down here, what are you doing?
Nailed it. You know, this goes back to acting school a little bit, but I had a teacher who was like, you know, you could be doing the most wonderful acting work in the world, but if they can't hear you in the back row, it doesn't matter if you were Heath Ledger on that day. It does not matter. So there has to be an awareness of, okay, I'm going to act for this person on stage, but I'm going to have my voice technically loud enough for someone in the back to hear me. And I think that actually bleeds into how I approach these films now that I'm mulling it over a little bit.
Right. Now, you've made a bunch of stuff on your own on your YouTube channel that I've been checking out. And so on those videos, are you the one-man band doing all the recording, all the editing, all the acting, all the writing?
Oh, yeah. Inevitably, like many YouTube creators, you have to do it all until maybe one day, if my channel ever got really large, I could hire an editor and maybe delineate some of that work to someone else. But yeah, that is all me learning anything from, again, sound design there to editing and stuff like that. But some of the skills I've learned in that world, the YouTube world, I've dabbled on TikTok too a little bit. What makes a really engaging 15-second video can also be taken to 15 seconds in your feature film. Do you know what I mean? Like you can take some of the
skills are transferable.
Yes, the engagement of scenes, how to keep someone watching your scene can travel from TikTok world to like a longer form feature film, I've noticed. So that's helped me with the editing for Out in the Light, which is coming up.
And prepping for this interview, I went through your YouTube channel and I watched some of your multi-minute videos, and I discovered your shorts today, particularly your imitation of Snape working at working at a grocery store or doing advertisements. Y'all need to go check this guy's shorts out. They're hysterical. But even your commercials, and I'm pretty sure some of those you clearly were getting paid to do, but some of those look like spoofs you made, like your whiskey one. Oh man, I howled. When you took that sip. I'll post a link to that one specifically in the description below. Y'all need to see this thing.
Oh, thank you.
And my wife could hear me cackling from clear across the house. I had to go let her know I'm okay. I'm just watching Jeff's stuff and it's good. But on your channel, you've got a variety of things. You got live plays for video games. You got acting bits, commercials you've done. What made you decide that you wanted to go with a variety of videos instead of just one single type every single time?
Yes, I've struggled with that a little bit as a creator too, because I know that YouTube rewards hyper-focused channels. So I had to come back to, what do I enjoy? What makes me excited? And I'm not really going to worry about the algorithm, not going to worry about amassing a million follower audience for now, at least. What just gets me passionate about sharing projects on YouTube? And I started to realize I love throwing up a video of me juggling. This is a new trick I learned. I love doing impressions. I want to try some of this deepfake software just to see if I can throw together an impression that could make someone laugh. Great. I also love video games. I'm very passionate about that. I've seen streamers play a video game that they love. It's not about views. It's like an old game from the 90s or something. I wanted to do that. I did start to realize my channel is super eclectic. That probably makes it not for everybody. I'm going to be completely honest, because it's like not just the video game channel. But on the flip side, I also think that it very much reflects me as an individual and what I'm into. And the following that I have amassed there loves when I post a commercial or loves when I post a juggling video. I can see it in the comments. So for right now, for what I'm trying to get out of YouTube, I think that the eclectic approach more reflects me as a creator, rather than like trying to become the next PewDiePie or whoever, you know, these famous video game
Mr.
streamers.
Beast.
Mr. Who's hyper-focused.
Speaking of commercials, the one you did for that university in Delaware, they completely did you dirty, saying that they weren't going to give you a degree in juggling because you were clearly skilled at doing it. It's not something you just do with no training.
Listen, I would argue I got a job in a commercial juggling, so I would argue that it is a direct route to a job. Why is there not a degree in juggling?
And even though you have a variety of content formats, there is a unifying principle of humor in all of them. I just got to wonder, for like the commercials that you were clearly hired to do, did you have some input on the direction that it took? Because the one you did for the shoes, that was hysterical. Or were they just that funny and you were the right guy for that role?
That commercial in particular, that's probably my favorite commercial that I've been in. A lot of it was scripted, but they also left room after each take. They were like, Jeff, just improv, just goof around. What's a line you want to say? How do you want to do this? Do you want to laugh? It was such a warm set. And I think sometimes in commercials that can be lost because there is a time limit for many commercials. They really want to get the take and they want to move on. But for that specific commercial, it's shot over 1 week. They gave themselves a lot of time to play. Oh, yeah. They were telling me a little about the screening process. For that shoe commercial, they had flown me out to Salt Lake City, Utah was actually where that one shot. And they worked on it for a full week. They really budgeted the time to do the script, but then left it open for improv. So for that specific commercial, there's a lot of just like my own personal take on little moments or things that I personally found funny. Yeah. I just dig that project a lot. I think that was where like corporate and creativity met and something awesome was made. You know what I mean?
So do you suspect that somebody at that shoe company is in fact an aspiring director and they wanted to make the best dang commercial they could make? Because it worked, because after I got done watching it, I went to the website. I checked it out.
You're like, I got to check out these shoes. This is actually, these seem like they have some merit here.
Mm-hmm.
I actually do think you might be onto something, because I know that it was directed by this first-time director and her name was Mandy. And after that commercial, she went off and I think started doing music videos. Again, it's been a few years since I caught up with her, but I think she was trying to get together her own feature film. Last I was in contact with this girl. So I do think you're right that this was kind of like, I want to give this project my mark, even though it's a commercial, even though, you know, we're trying to sell something, but can we also make it funny and get really great casting and have improv and all that too? So I actually think you're onto something there.
Yeah, there's no part and there's no piece that you can make that's too small to do a great job, because there's plenty of bad commercials out there, but that one I'm going to remember. And yeah, I'm going to put the link in the description so y'all can check it out yourself. It is worth the watch. It's like 2.5 minutes. It's a short film with like a story arc and all kinds of stuff. It's a quality product for a shoe commercial.
I know, it's wild. It's a great little ad. Yeah.
While we're on the topic of commercials, is there a favorite one that you've done? Was that it? The one you had the most fun on the set of?
As far as most fun on the set, it was that shoe commercial. I think that reads on screen. But believe it or not, if I had to name my favorite commercial, I was in a Wawa commercial. And anyone who knows what Wawa is, I'm from the Philadelphia area. If you know someone in a Wawa commercial, it's like they've made it. If you're from the tri-state area of like New Jersey, Philly, Maryland. So it's so funny. I've said that I was in this Wawa commercial to people who are from LA. They're like, what is a Wawa? What are you talking about?
It's a
And
gas
then I've
station. It's a fancy gas station.
it's a fancy gas station. But it has a surprisingly passionate fan base. Here's an example of, I'll call it local celebrity that ad gave me, if you want to call it that. But I went in for an audition for a theater. I auditioned. I was all done. It was for a musical, and then the casting director was like, "Hey man, saw your Wawa ad, dude." It's like I was like in for theater, like, something completely different. But just like people in Philadelphia had seen the ad and knew that I was in it, so just thought it was funny,
Well, you were good in the ad. It was very memorable, even though it was
Oh,
very short. Your delivery, your comedic timing was perfect.
oh, thank you, thank you.
And
I am proud of that one too. Turned out good.
and you were not kidding. The folks that know about Wawa and go there, they are a dedicated bunch. Like there's a political commentator I follow all the time, Jack Posobiec. He won't shut up about how many times he goes to Wawa. And I've been to
Totally.
one myself, and they are nice.
They're nice. I
It
think
was in
Johnny
Maryland.
Knoxville has a Wawa tattoo, if I'm remembering correctly. Like there's this strange passion for Wawa. I can't explain it.
So getting into a commercial, what is that like? You're an actor, you're ready to go. Say you're not a big name, so the Japanese aren't going to spend $1 million to fly you out to talk to an animated turtle. If you're any other actor, how do you go through that? Is it the same as any other acting performance?
So specifically for getting cast, is that
Yeah.
what you're trying to tackle? Yeah. When I first graduated school, I went onto the website Actors Access, which is well known with actors who especially first starting out, and just started applying to any short films and commercials that I saw on there. And I was lucky enough to actually book, I think, one or two through that. So that was just through what I'll call a blind submission. I don't know the casting director. I don't have any in, but I just put out a tape to these folks. From there, it was always on the back burner. I was like, I really need to get an agent, someone who knows my type, who knows me personally, knows what I would be good in, and is sending me in and kind of getting me essentially to the front of the line for these commercials or other projects that I would be really good in. So it was in, I think, 2017, I got my first agent, and I had found success with them. Then this was just me in the natural hustle of, I guess, kind of how I'm treating this industry. I was like, okay, so this is great. Can I then potentially apply to a bigger agency and just have some of my work be used as, hey, this is my resume. This is what I'm capable of. That's kind of exactly what happened. I applied to a slightly bigger agency. They're one I'm still with now. Through them, I booked a lot of the stuff that you've probably checked out on the YouTube page, like a job with Amazon and a job with the Wawa job, for instance. But they've also been great in that they've gotten me television work as well. To wrap up that question, it's going a little long-winded, but now I have an agent who knows me, knows my type, knows what I'm interested in, has seen my knack for comedy, for what I would be particularly good in, and they target auditions that they think I'd be really excellent in. So because of that, I do think that the ratio of booking has just gone up a little bit because they're just getting me in front of the right projects. You know what I mean?
Matching the right requirement with the right supplier.
It is that.
Making the bridge between them. That's great. So is YouTube the best place for people to see the most of your stuff? Or do you have any other social media channels they might check out?
I think it depends what you'd be interested in checking out. I have a website that really is just strictly professional, and you can see professional headshots there, and I do post my commercials there as well. So that's jeffgorcycaactor.com. But YouTube is very eclectic, as you saw. So if you're like, yeah, I just want to see Jeff, maybe he'll play Super Mario one night, but then I can also check out a commercial, then maybe YouTube for that. Then I also treat Instagram kind of in that eclectic way as well, but maybe leaning a bit more professional now that I think about it. Because if I ever get something like a modeling job, I'll be sure to put that there rather than, there's no video content for that for YouTube. So Instagram kind of lives in that. This is my kind of living resume is kind of how I treat Instagram.
Okay, that makes sense. In case you hadn't heard of it, there's a rival of YouTube. It's much smaller, but it's growing, called Rumble, that I get 50% more views on an average video over there. And their monetization is so much easier. They don't have all those barriers to monetization that YouTube has.
Yes.
If you get the clicks, you get the dollars. And
oh, that's great.
Yeah, Rumble, rumble.com. They're a big free speech advocate. So the chances of them for no reason whatsoever just content striking you or shadow banning you, it
Sure.
doesn't happen. That's not what they're about.
Oh, cool.
So I'd suggest you check that out if you got the extra bandwidth.
Yeah.
And speaking of acting, how'd you get into it in the first place?
My journey with acting, I guess, started when I was probably in about 7th or 8th grade. I always had a knack for music. I grew up singing and I grew up playing like piano. I was in choir in 7th grade. And my teacher, she's one of those teachers. Her name is Kelly Klein. And she was just someone who saw a lot in me and was like, you have a knack for being silly You have a knack for your energy. Let's put that into a school play. I think you'd be great in it. And I really do cite that first time on stage under her direction is when I was like, I love this. This is not a chore. This is not, oh God, I gotta go to acting rehearsal. I was just like, this is so fun. And I do think that's where it started, where it was like bubbling that like, I really love this. I started watching movies differently kind of ever since I started doing the school plays. I was like, oh, could I do that performance? How could I get to that spot? But I will say I had cold feet about pursuing acting professionally, as many people do, maybe rightfully so, because in my undergraduate path that I took, I studied communications with an emphasis in broadcasting and advertising. I was kind of going to go into that route. When I graduated, I got a job at a top 40 station for radio, and I worked there for 3 years. That was my path in my early 20s, like 21 through 24. I remember by the end of my tenure in radio, I just was like, I'm not telling stories. This isn't like, wow, this is very fun. This is very cool. It's not hitting that itch in my brain where I want to create something new. I'm showcasing other artists' work as a radio host, which has value. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, now that you've seen my work, you're like, if this is the guy who made the Tentacle movie, of course he's not going to have a deep passion for top 40 radio. So I remember it was kind of when I was like, oh man, I've always loved this since I was a little kid. Maybe I could go back and study this. So I did end up going back to school at Pace University and met my collaborators. And I'm very happy to say that now I think it's been 7 years since we graduated. We're still working together. And obviously Girl Soup is production team now.
Well, shout out to Miss Klein.
Yeah, for real.
It's important for older folks, adults, people with any experience to offer encouragement to the people that have the potential, because those are the next ones up the ladder after you, and hopefully they'll even exceed what you're able to do. So that's fantastic. Just a little bit of encouragement can make such a difference.
I know.
And so what was that first part?
I remember it. It was a very small musical called The Castaways. And it was kind of this ragtag group of, kind of in the vein of like the Newsies, if I'm remembering this musical correctly. And I was just one of the rambunctious kids in this. But that was like the first any kind of acting I did, that small little musical.
So was part of what hooked you into wanting to pursue this further, even if it took a little while for you to really bite into it, was it that kind of performance high you get from performing live?
I think that's part of it. I'd be lying if I said it was truly 100% about the craft. It is also about, I hit that beat, I felt the audience either take a moment or laugh. I'm absolutely addicted to hitting a proper comedic moment and then hearing a roar from the audience. But what I will say is I have grown a little past that a little bit. Now, I'll even say it a lot in a way, which mirrors what I was saying where I was like, I can watch myself on screen, but now I'm interested in sound design. Now I'm interested in color correction. I'm interested in Foley, you know, what makes a good edit. And so it's kind of become this thing where it may have started in this sort of, I love the validation of an audience. Now it's, I want to make this project. We started from an idea and now here it exists for everyone to see. That's kind of the adult Jeff version of what I'm seeking, I think.
And you want it to be the most entertaining it can be and the most technically proficient it can be, so it can excel in excellence in a number of ways. I get it. I get it.